Over to Caroline and Devon right now. And oh, there we go.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Kari and Steve, for having us here. So my name is Caroline Calhoun. I work at EdAdvance in Litchfield, and I am a professional learning specialist, but I also am one of the co-coordinators for all the sort of behind-the-scenes LEAP logistics alongside Francisco Baires at CREC, who I know lots of you know. And I have been partnering with my colleague here at EdAdvance, Devana, to do a lot of attendance awareness messaging. So I'll let Devana introduce herself and then we'll get going.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Devana Dione, and I am the Marketing and Communications Director of Marketing and Communications here at EdAdvance, and I'm happy to be here. I've been working with Caroline and Kari on an attendance awareness social media campaign. So I'm going to toss it back to Caroline, and she's going to do some introduction to this.
All right, next slide. Thank you, Christine. So we wanted to thank Attendance Works, who has been partnering with CSD for a number of years on a lot of different media related and resources all surrounding the importance of attendance. But this fall and summer, we were working with Kari and Attendance Works to really come up with hopefully some relevant social media content for families, just trying to really push the message of attendance, the importance of it, especially at the end of the summer, getting kids excited to go back to school, messaging the importance of families to get into that routine. So what Devana and I did was we really brainstormed to develop content, and we were keeping in mind the audience being any K-12 public school caretakers, parents as the target. And so we utilized Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as really low cost, effective platforms where you can really garner a lot of reach for a fairly low expense. And we were aiming for really streamlined, clear, eye-catching content that would satisfy the advertising requirements. So for these platforms, really you're aiming for minimal text and you want to have some sort of powerful graphic to capture, somebody's attention as they're half asleep on the couch scrolling through their phone. So we were mindful of different audiences. So thinking about different ages for the photos that we selected for our content, thinking about taglines that we could adapt and use in a bunch of different ways throughout the year through different cycles of a campaign. We did a little research on color psychology, which Devana can talk about a little bit more, and then thinking about representation and diversity across our photo selection. So kind of a lot of different buckets of thinking going into what this content could look like. And Devana is going to go ahead and show you some of the things we came up with. If you could go ahead.
Can you all hear me? Okay, you can hear me.
Yes.
Can you move to the next slide for us? Thank you. So this is a great example of things Caroline was mentioning. One of the things we focused on with this was very clear in-your-face messaging and a very simple graphic. The blue is something we picked this blue color, speaking to what Caroline mentioned, which is color psychology. Blue tends to evoke feelings of like calmness. And one of the other things is a sense of cleanness. So if you think about when you go to the store and you're buying like skincare products or walking down that aisle, a lot of the times you'll see like soft blues and whites. But we were, again, speaking to the sense of calmness. And one of the things we really were focused on were subtle ways to hint at feeling safe in like school being a safe, calming place as we're welcoming people back into school buildings after COVID. So we went with school is key, which is why you're seeing two keys here. And we thought it'd be interesting to see if there was a contrast in the style of key. So we picked a more like modern looking key and we picked an antique key. And we just wanted to see if it might, I'm giggling because I'm seeing the comment about being a boomer and the keys and how they resonate with people. But when we came up with school is key, we thought about different ways that might resonate with people. So as you can see, we have two other captions that went alongside these. One is school is key to building community, and one was school is key to your child's well-being. So along with these graphics, there was an opportunity for people to receive different messaging. And we also thought it was interesting when we were talking about this and really brainstorming it, how many different ways we thought we could apply this messaging. How many different thoughts came up when we said school is key? What is school key to? School is key to building relationships. School is key to developing the mind. So we thought this would be really cool to lead with and are excited to be able to carry this throughout the school year. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. I know Caroline also mentioned in that first slide how we wanted to show different groups of people and different groups of students. So this was one of the graphics we used with some older children. And we really wanted to show engagement and show people feeling happy to be in school. So with this one, we came up with one of the captions, school is key to learning behaviors and skills needed to engage in a healthy lifestyle. We also wanted to make sure we had some hashtags that people could use or utilize. Attended ACT is the one you'll see on a lot of the other materials that we're going to be able to share with you today. Next slide, please. Here's another example. We came up with the second tagline of school, it's more than learning. And again, this was something we thought people could apply to their own lives. We know that school is a resource that's important to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. So one of the captions you may see along with this is school, it's more than learning. It's friendships, fun, and a foundation for the future. But we're excited to have these taglines again, because they're so versatile. And we know that so many people have different feelings or ways that school has helped them. So we're excited again to be using these moving forward. And I'm sure you'll see more of this throughout the school year. Next slide, please. So this right here is actually an overview of some of the data we've gained from our social media campaigns. We started out right before back to school. If you look up top, you can see August 11th through 26th was our first run. And then we did a second run from September 19th to 30th. This is just an overview so you can get an idea of how many people this actually was seen by. So if you look at the first one, Meta, which encompasses Facebook and Instagram, shows reach, impressions, cost per result, and then our overall spend. Just so you all know, reach is the amount of people that actually saw this on their timeline, and impressions is how many times it was seen overall. So you can have a person who sees this more than once, and that's why you see basically double an impression. So again, reach is how many people this gets to, impressions is how many times it's seen overall. The cost per result, which is an average between the two. So it's a little, it's probably a little inflated because on the second half of this, we also included a link for people to be able to access resources. So in social media land, giving someone an action item and directing them somewhere costs a little bit more money. Our overall spend for getting to 229,000 people was about $1,800. And again, for the first half of our social media campaign, I believe it was closer to like $4 for cost per result, which I believe was for every 10,000 people it reached, which is very, very inexpensive. Over on Twitter, we had a total of impressions at 302,000, and that cost per result was $4.14, which again was comparable to what we saw initially on Facebook and was for, I believe, every 10,000 people that saw it. And we spent a total of almost $1,200 on there for approximately a month's time. We have one more slide, I believe, correct?
Mhm.
And Caroline's going to take over and share some information about this with you.
So thank you, Devonna. Before we move into the Attendance Works resources, I'm new to developing social media campaigns. I really have just been learning from Devonna's expertise, but Kari and I were both really impressed by how much we could do with really a pretty low budget. So we wanted to get this out to districts because knowing that you can do this, for a pretty low cost and get your messaging in front of a lot of folks in your district is really helpful. So those numbers we thought were pretty great, even for just 2 cycles into our campaign. And again, the versatility of the taglines. And this is something that, you know, you all can definitely do within your own districts. And so we're just sort of showing you how the process worked for us. Kari, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, and I don't know if you covered it or not, because I've been, but how did you choose the audiences, and what is the process for doing that? Who sees this? I wonder if anybody on here has seen it seen them, but I'm just wondering, how do you get it in your feed?
Great question. So this is basically sponsored paid content. So it shows up as advertisements through the CSDE account on all of these social media platforms. And what we can do behind the scenes is when we're setting up the campaign, Devana and I can go through, there's very specific demographics. So we can choose everything from the people's ages to different employment, to different education levels, to different parts of Connecticut or the country. You know, we can really narrow or broaden the audience depending on who we're trying to reach. So for this one, we really wanted initially, as we were kind of playing around and doing a trial run, we wanted to initially target folks who may not be in this same mindset of, oh yeah, I definitely want to get my kids to school. So thinking about folks that may need that messaging more. So for example, anybody who was an educator themselves was not targeted in the audience, because our assumption was that those folks probably were already, you know, aware of that importance. But we have, you know, we've had dialogue with our partners at Attendance Works and with Kari that it might be worthwhile to potentially broaden that in the future. And I think we actually did that for the second round, because the more messaging that's out there in front of everybody's eyes, the better. And then it can be potentially shared just more broadly. So those were some of the considerations. But it's really fascinating, actually, when you go to do all of this behind the scenes on Meta and Twitter, how specific it can get. I mean, it can, you know, questions about what languages the audience speaks, what exact jobs they've had, where they may have lived before and where they may live now. So it was a little, for me, it was really fascinating information just into how advertising in general works. But yes, you basically have lots of control of how you want to target your audience. Does that
That's
answer?
yeah.
Good.
I was amazed by it as well.
So the next thing we really wanted to share with everyone was Attendance Works, which is a national organization I'm sure you all are familiar with at this point. They've been partnering with CSDE for a very long time. They develop lots and lots of well-researched, really well-developed materials to support folks in Connecticut and really nationally. And one of their new resources is this toolkit called the Showing Up Matters for Real toolkit. So the acronym there, REAL, is for building routines, increasing engagement, providing access to resources, and supporting learning. But all of this is available for anyone to download. So if you all follow that link, you can take advantage of all of those resources at your disposal, and they really are very helpful. And I think you'll find they really resonate with district folks to help get this messaging across and to help support families. They have additional resources. If we go to the next slide, thank you, Christine. This was just a little bit more information that Attendance Works supplied about the Showing Up Matters for Real toolkit. So they have 4 key steps. I don't need to read this to you all, but you'll have this at your disposal. And they have, again, updated materials and new resources for this phase of the school year available for you as well. And if we go to the last slide that we have, they have some printable resources as well. Some of this may look familiar to you all because this was available last school year as well, I believe, but there are specific materials for districts and teachers, and then ones that are geared more towards families. So things like one-pager flyers or posters. There's even banners that you can print. We've actually just sent out another whole round of banners to schools that were from last year. So there's lots of materials available to you to help. And I know really after giving you all this information about the social media campaign and about Attendance Works, really what we're hoping today to use a little time for is to facilitate a conversation about what you all might be doing already in your
I will stop my meeting. I will
facilitate
I'll come meet him and bring him.
Okay. To figure out what you all may already be doing in your district to surrounding this messaging for the importance of attendance. So whether you are leveraging social media networks, whether you are perhaps putting money into print media, there's so many different ways that we can get this messaging out there. So I was going to pass it over to Kari. Our next slide, Christine, just has a sort of brainstorming question about what you may already be doing in your district.
Thank you, Caroline and Giovanna. I know you have to jump off the meeting, but I appreciate your coming on today and letting us to know about the really interesting work that you're doing on social media that is going across the state. It's not just in the advanced region, but it's on behalf of the State Department of Education. And so that's a statewide effort, as is our materials that are in the webpage I just shared are downloadable PDFs in multiple languages. You can put your own logo on them. There's tip sheets for families, there's coloring sheets, there's post banners. But I want to know if anybody could share what your district is doing to message the importance of attendance. It's a really important time of year to get our kids to start coming to school and start good habits. Anybody want to share before I call on people?
And I'll just jump in there too, Kari, before we have a few minutes. So also if anyone has questions about any of the process we went through, we're happy to stay on. We've got a few more minutes. So
go ahead and use in the reactions. You could raise your hand or you can just start to speak. This is Talk Tuesday, so we like to talk. No? Has anybody driven through Bridgeport lately off of 95? Is there anyone here from Bridgeport who can talk about their campaign? I don't know if there is or not.
I'm here, Kari. This is Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
How are you?
I was just call on someone.
Typing in the chat. You just beat me to it just by a
Thank
little
you.
bit. I was actually thinking about some of the early promotional attendance activities that we've been doing at open houses. So we have a lot of printables from Attendance Works in multiple languages. We have a table set up at open houses at our schools so that parents can engage in conversation with school staff regarding attendance. And I've received feedback that's been a really positive engagement and a lot of good conversations happening around that. But I think you were referring to our billboard on 95, which we started actually in early August to promote back to school. We had the date that school started, and we just really tried to put that message out there to families. We also had our email address to our LEAP website so that parents could learn more information about attendance on the website. And we continued that messaging actually up until last week. And we received a lot of positive feedback from that. It was also a very bright and cheery billboard. We had students actually leaping because this was funded through our LEAP funding. So it was a fun message in hopes of engaging families and students in the back to school effort.
For those who may be new to Talk Tuesday, because we just opened it up to all districts, LEAP is a grant-funded program for 15 districts to assist with home visiting and improving attendance that was established by the governor's office in 2021. So there's 15 districts that had really a tough time with attendance during COVID. So I just wanted to fill people in on that if you hadn't heard of LEAP. Any other questions or anyone have anything they'd like to share? Kenneth? I see you.
Yes. Good morning. Just to go back to your question about how we trying to promote attendance, we have at Booker T, we use our class dojo a lot, and we've been intentional about sending out weekly messages, in addition to the ones we send within the week, but weekly messaging on a Sunday evening, more around 7 p.m., just to kind of encourage attendance for the week. For example, we sent out this past Sunday because we have 4 days in this week for school. So we kind of want to encourage families like, hey, we only have 4 days to be here. let's just kind of get all 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So kind of prepping them every single week for what's ahead for the upcoming week.
Wonderful. Is Dojo similar to Parent Square?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're gonna say like a social media page within the school where you post stories, you can send direct messaging as well to parents, and when you're a part of a class, but to parents as well to staff members. So we're exploring to using it more, but making sure that all parents are on our Dojo to see our main messages, in addition to sending out our all call through the Power School Swift K-12.
Wonderful. And I know you had a pretty good year last year, improving your attendance. So I want to just call out and say congratulations. And I hope you have another successful year with that.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to share? Okay. Well, thank you all. And if anyone's interested in more information, you can always contact me, my contact information, and I can help make connections as well. My contact's at the end of the slides. And all right, so why don't we move on to the next slide? Carolyn and Giovanna, have a wonderful day, and thank you so much. Okay, so for those of you who are new to Talk Tuesday, since we just opened it up for all districts, this is targeted to school staff and district level staff. It's a kind of an informal drop-in every other week, 1 hour to kind of catch up, connect, and learn what's going on. It started at the beginning of COVID for 8 districts, and just to make sure everybody had their updates on all the policies and addendums that were going out, and we've just grown and grown since then. And so we wanted to make sure that all districts could attend Talk Tuesday this year. So I always start with what's new at CSDE, and this is from the Superintendent's Digest, which is a web page on on the Connecticut State Department webpage, and I put here the link and the QR code. Any thing that goes out to superintendents is posted there every Monday and Thursday. And so I bring it here just to remind people of what is new. So some of it's relevant, but I know many people play roles are addressing attendance because it's all hands on deck and everyone has to work on this. But I'll just go through these quickly. The long-awaited comprehensive reading curricula programs for K-3 that are approved and listed for our literacy folks. And there's universal screening, reading assessment, distribution of pandemic EBT, food benefits. That's something that if you're working directly with families, you want to make sure that you are helping them with those food benefits. There's on EdSite, there's a contact list where you can find many, many different types of contacts in districts, superintendents. I think McKinney-Vento's up there. If you're looking for a contact person, that link is there for that. Let's see, there's a training on SEDS coming up, questions, and there's schedules there. Oh, that's open office hours. That's unique, and that's something new, and I think that's really innovative, that where people can call and check in on that. The confirming educator evaluation. Then these resources could be helpful to some of your families. There's Eversource has energy assistance programs. There's a flyer you can download, print, and share with families, or just send to families. New Hampshire's commissioner is collecting holiday cards for military. There's a challenge, and then the Stepping Stones Museum is having a kids convention. So that's everything since the last Tuesday, 2 weeks ago. But I encourage you to go on Superintendent's Digest and look back at some of the things that have been released over the summer and the last couple months. Next slide, please. So I'm sharing these for our partners at CREC, and these are 2 parent-teacher home visit trainings that are coming up. If you are on our Talk Tuesday listserv, you will receive things like this from me in your mail. So these are 2 parent-teacher home visits and an online family workshop series. Feel free to share these with home visitors and others in your district. Next slide, please. Friday Cafe is open. Friday Cafe is fantastic. It's an opportunity for district staff and personnel who work at the intersection of families and education, like our home visitors, our family liaisons, to come together. It's in person this coming Friday with Malik Champlain, a consultant from CERC, who's going to be talk to you about the expertise is in the room and how to use families to help make decisions and resolve issues. So that information is there. I encourage you to share that with your staff or folks at your district. Next slide, please. For LEAP districts, the 15 districts I mentioned before, if you should have gotten an email last week from CREC, you can continue to use your LEAP funds from year one. You can carry those over and continue to use them as they are budgeted. If you have leftover funds, and LEAP 2.0 will be coming out through EGMS in the near future. And then there's contact information. Just a quick LEAP message. And next slide, please. If you have any questions, raise your hand or stop me. I'm willing to answer any questions. If it's LEAP specific, I would contact me because most people on here aren't LEAP districts at this time. But we have an updated definition of attendance from September 7th, the State Board of Education. I've shared this before, but because we have new people, we added remote learning as into the definition of attendance. And it includes those 4 buckets, as you'll remember, from hybrid and remote learning during COVID. It's only for statutorily authorized remote learning, which right now at this time is only for grades 9 through 12, and they need to follow the remote learning standards that were issued by the department. We also made a correction around students who are expelled or suspended from school. The last rendition of this said that they are always marked absent, but this was added. So if a student is out of school suspension or an expulsion, they're reported as absent, except for each day that the student receives alternative education program for at least half of the instructional school day. And if you have questions about the alternative education program, there are standards for alternative education programs that districts should be using, also guidelines for students who are expelled and access to education. So I just wanted to make sure folks have this. This might mean in your district, you might want to update your policies and practices around attendance. And this will come out with the slides. Next slide, please. So there's lots of questions. Our phones are ringing off the hook, and I'm going to try over the next couple of slides to help answer some questions around attendance and COVID. So on September 27th, some new guidance went out. It was mostly around remote learning and dual instruction and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And so for remote learning, it has to follow the standards. It can only be for grade 9 through 12. Dual instruction, the definition of that is when a teacher teaches to in-person students and students at home, and that is not acceptable for general ed students at this time. There's a law that does not allow for dual instruction. There are some exceptions around special education, but I'm not going to get into that here right now. But the new guidance provides an option that is new to me, and I wanted to share with you. It's called virtual monitoring of classrooms. And this is optional for districts. You can provide students who are at home due to COVID or similar illnesses with the option to virtually monitor their classes. And although they cannot interact with teachers or classmates, they are still deemed absent, but they can stay up to speed if they're feeling well enough and if the district provides that type of access for students. However, the most important line is the last sentence in this guidance, and I think it's a couple of pages, but the last sentence says, students who are out of school due to illness would be deemed absent regardless of whether they availed themselves of the virtual learning, just as they would have pre-pandemic when ill. I should say virtual monitoring. So there is no remote learning for students who are quarantined or isolated or have COVID this year. That there's evidence and research that in-person learning is the most effective, and that is our goal, is to have the kids in school learning. So if we go to any questions about that? There's a link here and a QR code. It's a pretty lengthy and dense guidance. So I encourage you to take a look at it. But that's the takeaway for me around attendance, is that there's no no remote learning for students who are homesick for COVID this year. If you, go ahead, Lawrence.
Yes, please. Can I just get clarification? So even those students, just for my own knowledge,
Yeah.
because I've been on a lot of conversations with parents regarding this issue, even though they're out due to COVID, that's part of the chronic absentee rate, correct?
Every absent counts towards chronic absence because it's a missed opportunity learning. Chronic absence includes excused, unexcused, all absences. It wouldn't, if it's excused absence, it wouldn't count towards truancy,
Correct.
right? So that's the difference there. But every absence counts towards chronic absence.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Because,
Just because it's time out of the classroom, and that's what that measures. And that's just to inform districts who might need more assistance because they had more time out of the classroom.
all right, perfect. Thank you.
A chronic absence, it doesn't necessarily mean you're bad. It means there's a situation that's happening that we need to support and address and assist. Okay, next slide, please. This is some guidance that came out in August, and I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. It's a document called launching into healthy learning operational strategies. And it talks about what maximizing in-person learning with symptom awareness and at-home testing. So if a student, and many of you have heard this, but I want to make sure you have access to these resources. And I just summarize them here. But if a student wakes up with mild respiratory disease symptoms, cough, congestion, runny nose, sore throat, that does not mean necessarily that they have COVID. It could be allergies or a cold. And so we want folks to test for COVID, test students for COVID in the morning. If they're negative, they can go to school. If they're positive, they're right now, I think it's to stay home for 5 days, but there is a link on the guidance there's a COVID, I hadn't heard of this before, calculator. There's a COVID calculator to determine how long you should stay home. And then, so self-test at home. If they are negative, they can wear a mask and go to school. And they can be allowed to attend in person. But if there's a fever of over 100 or more, they should not go to school and wait at least 24 hours for the fever to go away without medication, and test for COVID-19. If it's negative, they can go to school. Any questions? Next slide, please. There's guidance in here I just wanted to show folks, and it's based on your community level of transmission of COVID. And so there's low, there's medium, there's high, and there's different guidelines for those. And you can read those in your in the documents. For instance, the first most important thing is the vaccinations. We really would like to see as many students. It's encouraged for students to have vaccinations. You should support children and staff who choose to continue wearing masks, even when not required. Follow isolation guidelines for students who test positive for COVID. Recommend self-testing and masking for children and staff with respiratory disease symptoms, which we just went over. And the ventilation systems are well maintained and operated, and cleaning and disinfection protocols. Continue advising parents to report cases of COVID-19 to the school and maintain accurate absentee data. I think, communications with parents is key to keep it simple. I think that was part of our issues last year with attendance. It was very confusing. And so I'd love to see a graphic, if anybody has done this for families, that just shows if a student wakes up with symptoms, you test, you check for a fever. If they're negative, they can, and they feel well enough, they can go to school. Any questions about that? Okay. And maybe everybody knows this, but I've been getting a lot of questions, so I just wanted to cover it. So there's low community transmission levels. And then the next slide, please, kind of ramps up what you should do for medium community level, increasing spacing between seated students, Be prepared to respond quickly to rapid increases in absenteeism cases or outbreaks. So this is reported on the DPH website for every county, whether you are low transmission, medium transmission, and high transmission. So it's a green, yellow, and I think orange. And so your health department should be keeping districts in touch with what that is, and following these types of guidelines that ramp up as transmissions increase. Next slide, please. And if there's high community levels, advanced prevention strategies to consider include implementing a universal mask use policy for indoor spaces, limiting outside visitors to the school. This is if it's a high community level and you're very concerned about it. Schools stay open, but these are things you want to implement strategies to monitor and prevent in-school transmission. And discuss whether extracurricular activities that involve high intensity close contact should continue, such as indoor athletics. Any questions regarding these 3 levels of community transmission? Okay, great, thank you. Next slide, please. This is just a repeat. There's a companion document with that resource. The healthy returning to healthy learning. There's operational strategies, and I just sort of went over those, and I isolated them here. It's called Test, Mask, Go. So you test in the morning. If they're negative, you mask, and then you go to school. If you test and they're positive, you stay home until 5 days, or until 5 days. 5 days. Next slide, please. So I'm going to transition away from COVID conversations, unless there are questions regarding COVID or any strategies anyone wants to share. Okay, so attendance teams are key. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. You know, chronic absence rates rose considerably in Connecticut and most of our districts last year. We do have some districts that were able to reduce chronic absence or maintain at the same level, but the number of districts and schools requiring attendance review teams has tripled since before COVID. So with this in mind, it may be likely that your district or school is required by state statute to have a district review team or a school attendance review team. And so I call this to your attention, not because the law says you have to do it, but it's a really good strategy for determining the root causes, who are the students that are absent, and putting into place a multi-tiered system to support families based on root causes and needs. So to determine if your district or school is eligible, there's a typo. The latest district and school chronic absence rates are on EdSite from the 21-22 school year. And that link will go right to the chronic absence dashboard. And the law says that if your district has a chronic absence rate of 10% or higher, you have to have a district attendance review team. Schools with 15% or higher need to have a school attendance review team. And districts with 1 or more schools with 15% or higher, whether if the district's chronic absence rate is under 10%, which we don't have many right now, then if you have 1 school with 15% or higher or more, you need to have a district attendance review team and a school attendance review team. There's guidance in reducing chronic absence in Connecticut schools around the functions of a school attendance team, a district attendance team. And I just want to be clear that you do not have to call it a district attendance team or a school attendance team, but it should do the functions of a district attendance team, which is more than just looking at the students who have the most absences. The district and school attendance teams will look at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, because if you spend most of your time focused on tier 3, you're not going to be able to address tier 1 and tier 2, and your numbers of chronic absence are likely to go up. And then for those who are starting the year with their attendance teams, Attendance Works has wonderful self-assessment tools that I highly recommend you use in the fall to assess your policies and practices around attendance. I know districts use it every fall and they may do it again in January, but there's a district self-assessment tool and a school self-assessment tool, highly recommended. And then the attendance playbook from Future Ed and the implementation guide from Attendance Works are really helpful resources that I would recommend to you. I saw a question in the chat. Are there any other questions? So the question, if students are required to stay home due to COVID and are provided with work that is equivalent to half instructional day or more, would that be considered number 3 of the updated definition of being in attendance? No. If students are home due to COVID, they cannot be marked in attendance. The only way you can be marked in attendance for remote learning is if you are in a standard, a remote learning program that meets the standards the department has put out. And so you are grades 9 through 12 right now. So if it's a 9th grader who's enrolled already in a remote learning model, then yes. But if it's any other students home because of COVID, no. They cannot be marked present if they're home remotely just because they're sick. They have to be in a program, a remote learning program. I hope that answered the question. Let me see, are there any other questions? Okay, and then did I miss any other questions, Christine, or is that, no?
Nope, I've been monitoring. So no, she just said yes, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions about attendance teams? I can tell you that 84% of our districts are required to have a district attendance team. We're working with Attendance Works to provide some training at a statewide level to support districts. If you have any questions or need any technical assistance, please be sure to give me a call or email me and I'll be happy to help you. Next slide, please. So monitoring data early and often. So chronic absence rates have more than doubled since pre-COVID. Before COVID, we were hovering around 10%. And this past year, chronic absence in Connecticut was 23.7%. In order to improve student attendance and engagement, district and school attendance team, which we just covered, should monitor and assess data regularly. CSD provides reports and downloadable Excel spreadsheets on the EdSite website, which I have provided here. And there's also, it hasn't started yet, but in a few months, there'll be monthly chronic absence and attendance reports that are on the supporting student participation dashboard. You can download these Excel spreadsheets. You can manipulate them to just look at your own data, but it's encouraged that you look at your data often and early and often. I also wanted to point out these 2 reference guides, these 2 appendix actually out of the PSIS reference guide. There's F, which is pretty thorough guidelines for reporting student attendance in public school information system. It goes through all the scenarios you might connect with, like homebound or students on a vacation, and different types of scenarios that you might run into. So that's a really good resource. But Appendix L is reporting information about students who are disengaged, which means they're not coming to school. And many districts right now are trying to find those students who have not reported to school yet and see if they should be on their rolls or not on their rolls. And so Appendix L walks you through the protocols you must take before you unenroll a student. With an exit code 25, it's called, location unknown or discontinuing. So I encourage you to look at that. It also, if you know that the student lives in your district, they're just not coming to school, you cannot unenroll that student or withdraw that student, even if they're 18. So we've got a lot of questions about 18 and older. If they're 17 or older, their parents can come into school, meet with the school counselor, find out what the student's options are, and then can unenroll the student if the parent signs the form. If they're 18 or over, then the student can sign the form to unenroll or withdraw themselves from school. But you have to have that affirmative paperwork and documentation that they unenrolled or they came in and withdrew from school, 18 and over. You can't just unenroll them. So I've gotten some legal advice, some advice from our legal office, and from their view, unless a student has affirmatively disenrolled, the school district determines that the student, or the school district determines that the student has moved out of the school district, or the student is otherwise attending school, the school district should keep a general education enrolled until age 21. a special education student who has not received a regular high school diploma is entitled to services until age 22. And so you want to make sure you have documentation if somebody's over 18, that they've withdrawn themselves from school. Any questions regarding that? Okay, I promise the next Talk Tuesday will be much more positive, but I just wanted to make sure that we all had these.
I do have I'm sorry, Carrie, I do have
Yes.
a quick question. Is there any movement at the state level to adjust next generation accountability to kind of adjust for that? Because it seems like schools are going to be pretty harshly penalized in our assessments for chronic absenteeism rates for students who are over the age of 21, not over the age of 21, but who are not engaged in school within our nexus. Is there something that we could take a look at? I mean, there's no support from DCF in this regard. There's no supports from the state in this regard. So we're counting on RESCs and their availability of attendance officers to provide some support in a lot of cases, which they don't have attendance officers in a lot of cases. I'm just wondering in regards to schools and districts, what are some supports that they could look to other than, a printable sheet or something that, if a student's 18 or older not coming to school, they're probably not going to come to school to disenroll. So I'm confused that it seems like schools are going to be left in kind of a no area of no recourse here with little alternative but to just continue to get penalized on the state assessment data.
So the answer, I don't have an easy answer for that. Regarding the accountability reports, I would talk to HE if there's going to be any amendments to that. This is a really tough scenario. There isn't really an easy answer for students who aren't coming to school at all or have really tough attendance where they're, extremely chronically absent, over 25%. Those situations need, outside support from community providers. We no longer have a referral to court because generally these are not criminal issues. These are mostly social emotional issues. And so bringing in mental health providers and providing lots of prevention services up front so you have less students getting to that point. Something happened to that with that student so that they stopped coming to school. And that does and so what happened and how can we prevent it in the future? And this is intended to be information that that can inform the districts going forward. There's tough cases, Tim, and I'm sorry, I have to say that because I get the calls all the time. And having having a close relationship with your youth service bureau or another community organization to help you, connect with the family and connect the family to resources. We've had lots of discussions with large districts about, the rules say they have to come to the school to sign their student out. Well, what if you did a home visit or you met them in the community? You went to them, you just, made it easier for them. And you said, we'll come to you. You find an adult that maybe has a relationship with that student to help with that. But it isn't an easy answer. And I'm sorry you see it as, a negative against you, but it really is information that we can use to guide our practices. And, that's tough. And I appreciate.
No, I just, I'm not,
Totally
I don't view it as a negative because it's an accurate data set for us to determine where supports are needed. My concern is more or less of its authenticity and its accuracy because of the things that you were referencing. So that's really my point. And I was just wondering if there was anything coming down the pike. That's all. Thank you.
I haven't heard of anything. Okay. So Appendix L will tell you what to do if the student is in the district and how to determine if the student has left the district, doing a home visit, calling DCF, doing a wellness check, those kinds of things. So any other questions about that? Okay, next slide, please. So here's what we're going to do. This is a new year. We're going to open up Talk Tuesday to all. We're going to track our data monthly. We're going to talk about that. We're going to identify what's good and focus on bright spots. We wanted to bring the attendance awareness campaign to your attention. But if this is your first time on Talk Tuesday, we usually have a district talk about what's working in their district. So just know to look forward to that. It's not usually it's us at the state level, or we're going to promote strategies and interventions that work. We're going to monitor those interventions, and we're going to celebrate successes. That's what we're going to try and do this year to help us all improve attendance and have our kids come back to school on a regular basis. If you haven't done so already, I apologize, I don't have a slide. The Performance Matters Forum is October 13th, and that's a great opportunity to come and to learn and curated tables about different topics. We will have an attendance and engagement room with 6 tables talking about school-based mentoring, accessing your data, digging deep into data. We'll have a table on students with disabilities with Cromwell Public Schools. Bridgeport's going to talk about their school attendance teams and their district attendance team structure for support. But if you haven't signed up for that, please do, because it's a great event. It's at the convention center. It only goes till 1 o'clock, I think, in the afternoon. So I encourage you to look into that. And the next slide, please. Over the summer, we did sort of a boot camp, and I just want to share the slide with you. Back to basics. We started with school attendance teams are foundational to improving attendance. We went over some guidance for that, and there's a recording for all of these. We had school climate with Amanda Pickett and Dr. Michelle Baker from Wilby High School. And then talking about school climate, we had unpacking data to identify trends and root causes. With Bridgeport, and then we had equitable and inclusive family partnerships with families with Judy Carson and a partner of hers with Olive Branch Clinical and Consulting Services. So those are all recorded on our Talk Tuesday page. You can search our website for that, and you'll come right to it. But all of the Talk Tuesdays, or pretty much all of them, were recorded last year, so you can go back and they're listed by topic if there's an issue that you're concerned about and you want more information. Somebody asked me for the link for the forum, and what I can say we can do is when we send out the slides, we'll send out the link to register for the forum. Okay, next slide, please. And the next Talk Tuesday is October 18th. We're going to focus on strategies that work. So October 18th and then November 1st. And that's all I have. Are there any questions or any topics that you'd like to hear about in the future? Now I would love to hear from you if you have any suggestions, or everybody ready to get back to work and get on with your day. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Talk Tuesday. We hope to see you in 2 weeks. And we're here if you have any questions or need any guidance on issues related to attendance. Thank you.